There's an unspoken rule that we as YouTubers abide by, and that's this: if you can't take the heat, you get out of the kitchen. And that's a general rule of the internet as a whole, but when you're a YouTuber or a content creator of any kind, really, it's much more relevant because YouTube is a broken system, and we all know that going in. We're all aware of the fact that any of us at any point, really, could start using this broken copyright system against each other, but not only is that actually illegal, but it's also a Pandora's box that all of us should absolutely not be opening. Because if you can't take criticism from other creators, you should not be on this platform, plain and simple. And perhaps I'm a bit extra fired up about this subject, not only because I've dealt with it in the past, but also because when I did deal with it, a different creator who just dealt with it a few days ago came to my aid despite me having like 500 subs at the time. And that was like 5-6 years ago, and yet here we are again dealing with it because nothing really has changed. And despite that said creator getting their copyright issues resolved yesterday, at the time that I'm recording this video, something very strange also started happening over the last 24-ish hours, and it seems the Pandora's box of copyright strikes has officially been opened, and now new false DMCAs are popping up like the pimples on the faces of the people actually filing them. So the creator I alluded to is FritangaPlays, who personally helped me out years ago when I was dealing with the false DMCA of my own. And your opinion of Fritanga as a creator, or really any of the creators that I'm going to talk about in this video, should be completely irrelevant to the topic at hand, because this is something that everyone on the platform should be in agreement on. Nobody should be using the copyright system to silence criticism because it is cowardly and it makes the platform as a whole exponentially worse. A few days ago, Fritanga was falsely struck by BrokenGamez HD of the Weapon Wheel podcast. Fritanga used a very small segment of BrokenGamez' content to make fun of one of his takes, but BrokenGamez didn't like that and decided to file a copyright takedown despite the fact that everyone knows this is fair use. But not only did BrokenGamez issue a copyright takedown on Fritanga's video, he also then started saying that there would be terms to him removing it, which is perhaps the most ridiculous thing I've heard all month, because you are literally breaking copyright law here. You don't get to argue terms for not breaking the law further. And annoyingly, this isn't even the first time BrokenGamez has done this, so clearly YouTube has no interest in enforcing their own copyright rules despite them having legal implications. YouTube's system is set up basically as a failsafe from keeping people from uploading actually copyrighted content to the platform, like full movies or TV shows. Like, if fucking Robin Hood, this one with the foxes, that's legitimately a top 5 Disney movie, and if you disagree, you're a fucking moron. If Robin Hood was uploaded in its entirety to YouTube on a random account, yeah, Disney would be in their legal right to strike it down, because that is their intellectual property and their copyrighted work being distributed in a way they did not approve. I recognize that there is an actual functional reason for YouTube's copyright system being this powerful, because if it wasn't this powerful, YouTube would basically just become Pirate Bay. And as hilarious as that would be, it's also not what the platform was built for. But that being said, if you issue a copyright takedown through YouTube against someone's video, what you are saying is that you have legal ownership of that content and therefore have the legal power to decide whether or not it can exist on the platform. But if you don't actually have legal ownership of that content, you are now abusing copyright law. You are knowingly, falsely using a legal system to claim ownership of something that you don't actually have ownership of, which is illegal. To quote Google AI, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA, allows copyright holders to remove infringing content from internet service providers. However, filing a false DMCA takedown notice can result in legal consequences, including civil penalties, damages, and legal fees. Statutory damages are usually between $750 and $30,000 per work, but can be increased to $150,000 if the infringement is intentional. Criminal penalties, up to $250,000 in fines and 5 years in prison, even for first-time offenders. Fines for false representations, up to $2,500 for knowingly making a false representation of a copyright application or related written statement. But this bottom part is the most important part. The DMCA requires that anyone filing a copyright complaint swear to the facts under penalty of perjury. Intentionally lying in a sworn declaration is a federal crime. So can you now see why this is the dumbest thing ever? You don't get to do something actually illegal and then act like stopping the illegal activity is going to have to come with favorable terms. Like, no, dude. You are actively breaking the law, and you should just fucking stop, or the person that you are falsely filing the strike against will sue your fucking pants off, and they will win. Which is precisely what Fritanga was teeing up to do before BrokenGamez folded and lifted the strike, which was the right thing to do. I don't want to dwell on drama that is over, but also, this was just the beginning of the drama, and also, this is the whole problem with the system. It gives the target of criticism the power to completely shut down said criticism, and then basically just trusts that they'll eventually do the right thing, instead of actually looking into the shutdown to make sure it's legitimate. It gives way too much power to the people who are going to use it maliciously. How are we supposed to critique each other if simply showing the thing we're critiquing is enough to give the person being critiqued the power to remove the criticism altogether and screw with the critic's place on the platform? Because if you get too many DMCAs, you can just get kicked off of YouTube. And I find it absolutely hilarious that throughout the years, YouTube has quietly changed their algorithm and their monetization policies behind the scenes, always under the reasoning of, oh, we can't have a small number of people making the whole platform look bad. And yet they have refused to change the system where anyone at any time can break federal copyright law to silence criticism of them. That seems like a much bigger blight on the platform than potentially Disneyland ads showing up on a video with naughty words in it. And that's why this has always been a bit of a Pandora's box. You don't use the DMCA system because we all accept that it is broken and abusable, and the only people who actually use it this way are cowards who can't take criticism or getting made fun of despite their insistence on being on YouTube, which is an oxymoron in itself. You really think you're safe from being made fun of on here? Nobody is. If you can't handle being made fun of, that's not a character flaw. You know, like contrary to popular belief, some people have thinner skin than others, and that's perfectly okay. But if you have thinner skin, you probably shouldn't be on a platform that is entirely based around user-generated content, because if you say something dumb or you do something cringy, people are going to make fun of you for it, and it's your duty as a creator and just as a functioning adult to either take the heat and move on with your life, because at the end of the day, these are just words on the internet that cannot hurt you unless you choose to let them hurt you, or you recognize that this shit isn't for you and you get off the platform. And while I'm happy to report, again, that BrokenGamez lifted the DMCA on Fritanga, several other DMCAs have popped up in the last couple days because we are truly living in the dumbest timeline. I'm sure some of you heard about the Actman getting falsely copy struck by AndyPants Gaming because the Actman made the mistake of, checks notes, uploading footage of a debate in which he was one of the two participants? Question mark? And AndyPants' justification was that Actman posted the entire interview, and that's somehow not fair use, whereas posting clips would be, even though the two of them were literally in agreement that they both could use this for content, and also even if they hadn't agreed to that, this still falls under fair use. Gee, I wonder if people are using the DMCA system to scrub the internet of people making fun of their takes. I wonder if this is something that YouTube should look into. And yes, AndyPants retracted the claim, he did the right thing, but are you sensing a pattern here? Are you noticing that it is way too easy for people to quite literally break copyright law on this platform? Are you noticing that this entire system is basically built around the idea that creators will eventually do the right thing instead of YouTube enforcing its own fucking rules, which is extra stupid because their rules have legal implications? And as if this wasn't enough, literal hours after Actman was struck, the editor for OhNoItsAlexx's second channel was falsely copy struck as well by a complete doofus that goes by ThatGenericEric, who, as regular viewers of mine know, is a gigantic PlayStation dick writer who has had some of the most horrendous takes of all time over the last few years on Twitter. But when Alex made fun of one of Eric's YouTube videos during a stream, Eric decided to issue a DMCA against him to take down the footage, despite the fact that Eric himself frequently uses other people's footage in his own content for the purpose of transformative criticism. And now Eric is also doing the BrokenGamez thing, where he's trying to demand terms for releasing the copyright strike. The copyright strike that he is breaking federal copyright law in order to hold, and YouTube is just nowhere to be found. Also, you want to see something hilarious? If you look at the copyright strike that was issued to Alex's editor, you see someone named Mr. Boomstick XL. Yeah, he's not involved with this at all. The only reason he's even here is because ThatGenericEric made a video about Mr. Boomstick, which is the video that Alex was making fun of, and that Eric struck down under the guise of it being copyrighted or something. So, just so we're clear, Eric literally did the thing that he's accusing Alex of doing in the takedown notice. You literally both did the same thing, but you get to take down Alex's video, and YouTube, once again, is nowhere to be found. The DMCA system is completely broken, and I fear that we're only in the beginning of a new wave of false strikes, because if YouTube is basically just sitting back and letting people take care of this themselves, what kind of incentive is that for people to knock it the fuck off? If there's no actual consequence for abusing the system, why is the system there? And it's all the more ridiculous because, again, abusing this system is literally against the law, and YouTube remains completely silent on all of this. At the time that I'm making this video, ThatGenericEric not only has not lifted his strike against Alex, but he's just openly boasting about the strike on Twitter, and I can't even blame him, frankly, because he's probably fully aware of the fact that until lawyers get involved, there's no actual consequence. And that's the problem. YouTube has a system in place that is meant to detect when people are breaking copyright law, but there's nothing in place to prevent people from abusing the system, which itself is also against copyright law. And unless people hire lawyers to force YouTube into waking up and getting with the program, there truly is not any consequence for only one side of this conflict, and it is always the side that is objectively, factually in the wrong. And it's always been like this. And with how willy-nilly people are getting about it, I'm really worried that it's just going to enable more people to abuse the system, because fucking why wouldn't they? YouTube is actively looking the other way about this. You really think they don't know about people abusing the system? You really think they don't hear us? They 100% hear us. They just don't care because they only care about corporate money. And yeah, this system is amazing at protecting corporate money, but it's also horrible at protecting creators because all it does is make sure creators have to walk on eggshells at all times or else run the risk of having their channel or livelihood shot down by a bitter child with thin skin and then waste money hiring a fucking lawyer to enforce the rules that YouTube claims to enforce. I can't think of another platform that literally gives people the ability to break the law with the touch of a button, but has no fail-safes involved for what happens after that. It's honestly fucking embarrassing. Shutting down criticism is cowardly. If you cannot handle criticism, you shouldn't be sharing your opinions or content on a platform intended for the widespread sharing of opinions and content. And if you would rather abuse copyright law to remove criticism of your opinions and content instead of just turning your fucking phone off, you are a fucking child. At this point, I don't even know what to say about YouTube refusing to look into this because they've been like this for years, and there have been several actual lawsuits as a result of their refusal to enforce their own rules. It's fucking pathetic. And yet, it's still less pathetic than the people who actively abuse the system because they think they should be able to shut down other people's opinions, but their opinions should be protected. If you cannot take the heat, get off the fucking platform. Toodles.